Again, a word to Enzo for being with us this morning. On this third Sunday, in which we historically tend to lift up a sense of hope, a sense of joy, I can think no better example than a senior in high school who looks back lovingly and celebrates his past, and yet looks forward to a bright, bright future. Thank you, Enzo, for being with us. You do, and you have always, as your family, have always been a gift of hope. Thank you again for that. As we celebrate today, we hear, "O come, Emmanuel." Again, sometimes putting us in a position that we're looking to that check-the-box moment on December 25th when we can say the Messiah has arrived, check the box, and move on. As though the Messiah is some magic event that occurs once a year. This light that we have been talking about is not some light that's going to appear in the distance, coming over some mountain. That light is entrusted to us. This light that we celebrate is already within us. The light of Christ will shine in this world because we choose to bring that light. There's nothing magic about it. It's hard work. We have to be a part of it. We cannot naively stand back and just think ethereally this is just like some lovely fairy tale that's going to happen. Bringing the light of Christ is about making choices. That light exists because we exist. And how we choose to bring that light into our lives, into our communities, into our nation, and into our larger church. How do we do that? Right here at home at St. Joan of Arc. No one of us can provide the light that we need. But every one of us is the incarnation of God's love. And there is light within us to shine in our weary world, in our weary nation, and in our weary church. The third Sunday of Advent has traditionally called us to an emphasis on what we understand it to mean when we rejoice. The third Sunday of Advent always calls us to that sense of hope, a sense of anticipation, to be able to be hope-filled enough that one can have joy in their life and feel okay about that. That you're not living on the edge because you happen to have some joy going on in your life. It's really okay. And you can really rejoice about that. What it means to remain hopeful, all the time knowing that no one of us can provide all the light that we need. The darker shadow tones of Advent and an emphasis on waiting gives way to our need to reflect on the deep joy of God's profound grace and love that has been and is today traditionally the emphasis on the third Sunday of Advent. And on this third Sunday, we pause and shift, and our focus is symbolic in itself. It brings an inherent message of hope. We are invited to take a breath from whatever it is that we are choosing to grind down on. And I ask you to think about it right now in your own life. There's no better way to deal with it than to name it. So what is it in your life? Maybe it was this week, maybe it was this morning, maybe it was 50 years ago. What is it that keeps us stuck? what is it that keeps us just gnawing down on something that we absolutely refuse to let go of and to move on with? What steals our sense of hope? What steals our sense of being able to have possibilities? What steals our ability to even dream? What keeps us in the shadows? What makes it seemingly impossible to ever find our way home? An image that I sometimes have about God is that she will always leave the porch light on for us. We never need to worry about finding our way home. God, she will, she has, she always has, will always leave the porch light on for us, giving us a sense of being at home, giving a sense of inviting us at home, giving us a sense of hope. I want to share this reading. I actually have received some lovely, incredible holiday Christmas cards already. This is from Mike and Linda, who are fellow parishioners and attend the 9 o'clock. This was on their card from Nikki Banis. If you only carry one thing throughout your life, throughout your entire life, let it be hope. Let it be hope that better things are always ahead. Let it be hope that you can get through even the toughest times. Let it be hope that you are stronger than any challenge that comes your way. Let it be hope that you are exactly where you are meant to be right now, and that you are on the path to where you are meant to be. Because during these times, hope will be the very thing that will carry you through. God's love and compassion are always with us, beckoning us forward, offering us healing, and inviting us to a sense of renewal. There truly is light within every one of us to shine in our weary world. Today's readings brim with a sense of hope and joy. I hope we were able to hear that. The prophet Isaiah addressed the beleaguered people of Israel who longed to find their way home from years of living in exile as prisoners. His message, the prophet, to the people of Israel was akin to a rousing pep rally. The prophet says, "Say to those whose hearts are frightened, be strong. Fear not." Isaiah presents a compelling vision of comfort, of well-being, and even a sense of opulence, recalling what must have felt like the good old days. He was able to rouse Israel into having a dream once again. The community becomes emboldened as they recall the God that they once knew as the God who brought them justice, who brought them mercy, and who brought them healing. That same God will soon come in vindication. Indeed, Israel will know again the joy and the gladness of Zion. There is the light that shows us the way forward to a better world. Israel's imagination expands, allowing people to visualize crossing the formidable desert that has confined them in exile apart from their true homeland. they now have a vision of going home, a sense of hope. The light of courage to walk that path no matter who says, stop. No matter who says, you're not welcome. No matter who says, you need to be, you deserve to be a prisoner. That sense of joy and sense of hope goes right through all of those negative messages. Who among us has not experienced a similar sense of desperation amid the violence and the complexities of life? Those times where we simply cave into it all. Who among us is not just a bit homesick for what may have felt like a simpler, more peaceful, and a joyful life? I'll admit, sometimes the good old days look better and better the further we get away from whatever we identify as those times. I thought about some of the good old days here at Joan of Arc, and we have good old days right now. But sometimes my mind harkens back to when this gym was no wider this way than where the light board is. That's exactly where the door was. And this door. We didn't have we had all this seating here, but there were also benches around the outer perimeter of the gym. People stood on, or sat on those, and then there would be people standing in front of those who were sitting on a bench, which made it a challenge. You wouldn't have thought to not come to church. And if you happened to miss, because I would guess some grave illness, you were asked, where were you last Sunday? This place was jam-packed. And our faith community is never really ultimately about who's here, who isn't. But those were, in some ways, some of the good old days, as I remember back. Another wonderful example was a young family who was preparing to go to church on that Sunday. And it was icy. The roads were not good. And the parents had a conversation with the kids saying, you know, it's pretty icy out there. Maybe we should consider not. True story. And the kids said, well, I guess you'll have to decide what you're going to do. Make sure you let us know, because if you're not going to church, we're going to call a cab. We're going to church. The good old days. Oh, the good old days. It is exactly those more challenging times that shape the context of our second reading from James. Not surprisingly, the early Christian communities experienced a variety of controversies as they discerned how to follow this Jesus when they did not have him with them physically. There is the light of truth telling, again, about ourselves. To be willing to speak up and our willingness to speak out. Our willingness to speak truth to power. We live a complicated and at times a very conflicted life as individuals, as a nation, and as a church. There is light enough for all of us, but we need to be willing to share that light. We need one another, bottom line. None of us are self-sufficient. It is wrong. It is, if you will, arrogant. And far from the truth to think that any one of us are self-sufficient. We need one another. And all the energy that one might put into trying to convince yourself or the world around you that you are again, not in need of anybody, take half that energy and extend it toward reaching out. There needs to be room for everybody. One of my favorite quotes from Shirley Chisholm, the very first black woman elected to Congress in 1968 from the state of New York. She says, "If they don't give you a seat at the table, make sure you bring your own folding chair." Every one of us need to have access to our own folding chair, and to also be able to share that folding chair with the person who is not welcomed, who is not invited. This applies to our own parish, it applies to our nation, it applies to our church. We need to be dedicated to making sure that there is a seat at the table for all people. And how do we go about that? This is the message that we must take to heart. None of us can provide all of the light that we need, but every one of us is the incarnation of God's love, and there is light within us to shine in our weary world. We need to be that porch light in our church, in our nation, in our neighborhoods, in our own family. John O'Donohue was a poet and a philosopher. I share these words. We are in this time of the interim. We are in this time of waiting. The path we took to get here has washed out. The way forward is still concealed from us. We are coming free from all that we have outgrown. It is difficult to become new, but we will not squander our call in this time. We will not squander our call to be faithful, our call to be transfigured, our call to be a light of love to the nations. We will be true to the journey till we arrive in the new dawn. It is hope that will be truly the gift that carries us through. St. Joan of Arc, we must not squander our call. We have a charism within a larger church. To be able to be that light in the window, to have that door open, to know that this table has endless seating, and all people are welcome. We cannot squander our call. And sometimes we need to be reminded of that. I went back a little retrospectively about the good old days, as many of us may remember. These are our good old days right now. So how to keep that sense of hope? How to maybe take that extra effort, not just during a special holy season, but throughout. We're all in this together. This thing called faith, this journey. And it's okay that we're going to rough and tumble and agree and disagree, but what we need to agree on is that we will not squander our call to be of service. and that we will call everybody to be engaged, not disengaged. Amen.